Hello and welcome to Question Hour, the show on Rajya Sabha TV where we get you all the details of questions asked by the members in the upper house and replies given by the ministries and the departments. I'm your host Rajat Kain, joining with me my colleague Kriti Mishra.
Thank you so much, Rajat. So our show focuses on all the important unstarred questions asked by the members of the upper house during the previous session of Parliament. In this case, this is the previous monsoon session of Parliament or the 252nd session of the Rajya Sabha.
Well, Question Hour is very essential parliamentary tool of democracy whereby the members get to ask questions on the work done by them. Now, broadly speaking, there are three categories of questions.
So there are start questions, the unstart questions and also the short notice questions. Now start questions are those questions of which answers are given orally on the floor of the House. The members also seek supplementary from the concerned minister, whereas unstart questions are those questions of which answers are deemed to be laid on the table of the House and the answers are given in the written format as well. And our show focuses on all the important unstart questions asked by the members of the upper house during the previous session of Parliament.
So now what's the procedure whereby these questions are raised by the members? They go through several process of a secretariat, which is Rajya Sabha secretariat. How these questions are finally answered when the answers are laid on the floor of the House. A member submits his or her questions at least 15 days before the office of Rajya Sabha chairman. The Rajya Sabha Secretariat chooses the questions to be answered through a draw of ballots. Separate ballots are held for starred and unstarred questions. The questions are scrutinized for admissibility under the current rules and precedents. Advance copies of chosen questions are sent to ministry or departments concerned. The ministry concerns collect information to prepare the reply. The minister concerned reply to starred questions on the floor of the House and provides written answers to unstarred questions. Up to 160 unstarred questions are listed every day in a separate list.
So Rajat, that was the procedure, and now let's take our viewers to the important unstart questions that we've filtered for them in this edition of the Question Hour show.
Well, this question was asked by member Vinay P. Sahasrabuddhe from Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. The member asked about the skill development programs and how they are resumed after the post-COVID-19 lifting of the lockdown, what government proposes to do with these programs so that their reach is spread even further, and lastly, are these programs are also on the online platform.
So this response has been given by MOS Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Mr. R.K. Singh, and in the response he says that the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare at the instance of Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship issued SOP or Standard Operating Procedures on 8th of September 2020 for resumption of training activities in the post-lockdown period, including in training centres of industrial training institutes, short-term training centres under National Skill Development Corporation, or state skill development missions or other central or state ministries, departments, National Institute for Entrepreneurship and Small Business Development, which is NISBAT, Indian Institute of Entrepreneurship, which is IIE, and other training partners. The SOP outlines various generic precautionary measures to be adopted in addition to specific measures to be taken at these institutes to prevent spread of COVID-19. The government further says that COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated change in workplace dynamics that was already happening due to automation and artificial intelligence and changing workplace roles. The need has now emerged for skilling or reskilling or even upskilling in all sectors, including health sector. Their courses are developed in areas like telemedicine or sanitization. The ministry, through its online portal Bharat Skills, which provides courseware for 29 popular courses, e-learning video content for 71 courses and question bank for all 137 trades under Craftsman Training Scheme for IIT including other National Skill Qualification Framework, which is NSQF, Aligned Courses has conducted online training program during lockdown, benefiting almost 9,38,851 trainees. Further, another 1,31,241 trainees have availed online training facilities through Bharat Skill mobile app. Similarly, National Instructional Media Institute, an autonomous body under the ministry, has conducted 3,080 online classes, benefiting 16,55,953 trainees. Besides the industrial partners of the Directorate General of Training under the ministry, Quest Alliance, IBM, NASCOM, Microsoft and Cisco have conducted online training, having 1,84,296 participants in addition to the above. 16,767 exclusive online classes for 35 CTS trades and 34 craft instruction training scheme running across 33 national skill training institutes have been conducted. In short-term training, a very large number of trainees under NSDC, which is National Skill Development Corporation, skilling ecosystem, have utilized the services of its eSkill India and e-learning portal, which leverages technology in continuing the skilling momentum and enables skill seekers accelerate their learning through methods like virtual learning and remote classroom. So these were the steps taken by the ministry during the lockdown period, and these are the other steps that the ministry is taking in the post-lockdown period during the coronavirus pandemic for skilling people in India. And in fact, the member who asked this important question, Dr. Vinay Sahasrabuddhe, joins us through virtual platform. Sir, welcome to Rajya Sabha television, sir. So during the previous session of Rajya Sabha, you had asked about steps taken by the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship for skilling people in the post-lockdown period. What is your take on government's response? Because the government says that lakhs and lakhs of people have been trained during this period with new methods.
I think the government and especially the concerned department has prepared very well insofar as skill development is concerned, skill development and entrepreneurship. And in that context, what is very remarkable is that they have coordinated with various institutions as well. It is not just a singularly handled assignment as such, because these things require a huge amount of inter-institutional kind of coordination, and that seems to be happening, which is a very, very reassuring thing. And I believe that with these kinds of new methodologies now being introduced, and all of us are becoming more and more conversant with all these things, and we are realizing both the limitations and also the strong points of online education into skill development as well. Of course, normal instructional design and for a skill development kind of a design, there is a distinction, and I believe that also should be taken care of.
So the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the job market. It has changed the way people used to look at jobs. How do we train ourselves and how do we accustom ourselves to this new normal in terms of skilling?
Well, as I said, in a way, at least for now, it has become a new normal. And even otherwise, I believe we have now appreciated the merits of online working. For example, several seminars are happening, training programs are happening, orientation programs are happening. And one finds that the lack of actual conversation, coming together in person or physically remaining present and participating, has its own advantages that goes beyond doubt. But at the same time, if you do the things honestly, with all sincerity and skills at your command, even online, I believe they are not far too less effective. And therefore, this is a new learning of the new normal, I would say. And I certainly would say that after all, when the situation becomes normal, again we will be limping back to our old ways of joining or participating any training program or any instructional course as such, because it has its own merits beyond doubt. But at the same time, I think the advantages of online training are also now realized by most of us.
The government also talks about collaboration with the private sector. How important is it for skilling our people?
Well, I don't know whether it would be private investment as such, but private participation, I would suggest, is extremely important. Because what happens is, and especially when you're talking about skill development, now say, take the example of some automobile mechanic kind of a person, and for him, all the theory is taught to him online, which is a very good thing. And you have all these kinds of new gadgets and new software to to reduce the distance between actual and virtual. And he gets to feel that, of course, almost he's trying to gain a hands-on experience while undergoing the training. And but then, if you have some kind of simulation related softwares available, it becomes very effective. But it's not very easy because these softwares are at times very costly also. But if we involve, say for example, we have the Maruti and the Mahindra and so many automobile industry people are there. If any of their mechanics share his or her experiences on a YouTube based lecture or a Facebook based lecture, where people are also kind of allowed to raise some questions, and the camera can go to actual workplace of that particular person, and he can show how this particular part is to be fitted and what kind of other technologies or technological equipments to be utilized, and how it can be a foolproof thing, a flawless thing, and where exactly are the pitfalls, what kind of mistakes that one can routinely commit, and how one can avoid them as well. So all these things will come via some kind of an experience-based input coming from some mechanic who is actually working. If we kind of try to have that input also a part of the instructional design, especially in the context of skill development, I believe that alone will add extremely important value to the whole exercise. And therefore, while the skill development ministry is definitely on the right path, I would suggest, with the help of several industry and commerce organizations, including FICCI and ASSOCHAM and so on and so forth, they should, to the extent possible, coordinate with actual industry people and try to have that engagement of the new trainees who are taking an online training with those who are working offline. The government is already undertaking several experiences, several experiments. For example, craftsman training program is there. National skill qualification framework has been put in place, and then the Bharat Skill mobile app also has been introduced. There is a National Instructional Media Institute, which is also engaged in all these kinds of things. So government, on its own part, I think, is doing lot many things. What is required is to ensure that all these things reach to the people as well through various media. The media outreach at times falls short, and then what happens is that the government, the bureaucracy says, oh, we are doing everything, but then people are not coming. People will come only when they get to know about this, and therefore there's some kind of a huge experiment, a huge exercise to take all these things via the social media and other media to the aspiring candidates. It's something very critical. I would suggest these institutions and the ministry itself, they are already there on the social media, but their social media presence perhaps could be further enhanced. I believe there is a scope for that.
Right, sir. Point well taken. Thank you so much for joining us through this virtual medium.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Namaste.
And now let's take a look at the next question that was asked by member Elmaram Kareem, and this question is to the Ministry of Railways. And the member has sought details about the Shramik special trains that were operated in the country during the COVID period to transport the migrant labourers.
Well, COVID-19 pandemic saw a vast number of people stranded in several parts of the city, and several Indians were also stranded ashore. Now, Indian government started two primary initiatives. First, Vande Bharat, that was getting Indians who were stranded abroad back to their homeland. And secondly, in the inland travel, the train scheme, the Shramik train was started especially for the migrants. Now, the ministry in the reply says that these Shramik trains were started in a mission mode, and there were certain protocols. which has to be followed by the states when they had to place an order or to say request before the center for starting the Shramik train to and fro a particular point. In the elaborate response given by Minister of Railways Piyush Goyal, the minister says in all 4,621 Shramik special trains have been operated between 1st of May 2020 and 31st of August 2020, carrying 63.19 lakh passengers to their home states. Shramik special trains were requisitioned by state governments. In normal circumstances, such special trains are booked by state government or any agency or by any individual on full tariff rates, which include normal fare for both the directions, service charges, empty haulage charges, detention charges as well. Indian Railways allowed booking of Shramik special trains on normal fare for one direction only. Special arrangements like enhanced sanitization, special security, medical arrangement, rack sanitization, free meals and waters for Shramik operations further added to overall cost of running these trains. Railways have collected fare for Shramik special trains from the state governments or their authorized representatives. Railways did not collect any fare directly from the passengers. Fare collected from the state government or from the representative of state government for running these special trains for period 1st of May to 31st of August this year is approximately 433 crore. Railways could recover only a small fraction of expenditure incurred on running of Shramik trains, thereby incurring a loss in operation of these trains. No train lost its way or travelled in the wrong direction, as most of Shramik special trains were run towards eastern part of the country on specific routes to ease congestion on these routes. Very few trains were routed through alternate non-congested routes between the 20th and 24th of May during peak phase of Shramik special trains operation. 113 complaints have been received by the IRCTC from passengers travelling on 4,621 Shramik special trains on the unavailability of food and water during the operation of Shramik special trains. Well, that was an elaborate reply by Ministry of Railways on Shramik special train. Now, another query which is fairly related was asked by member PL Punia, again from Ministry of Railways. The member here asked about the conversion of passenger trains to isolation ward to keep a COVID-19 patient. The member asked details about how many such passenger trains were used for making isolation wards, and lastly, what was the expenditure incurred on maintaining and forming these passenger train into isolation wards.
So here's a detailed reply given by the Railways Minister Piyush Goyal, and he says that 5,601 railway coaches were converted into COVID care centres by Indian Railways during the months of March, April, May and June of 2020 to combat the coronavirus pandemic. He is also given the breakup of the zonal railways. Let's take a look. So in Central Railways, 482 coaches were converted into isolation coaches. In Eastern Railways, 381. East Central Railway, 269. East Coast Railway, 262. Northern Railway, 897. North Central Railway, 141. North Eastern Railway, 217. North East Frontier Railway, 315. North Western Railway, 266. Southern Railway, 573. South Central Railway, 486. South Eastern Railway, 338. South East Central Railway, 111. South Western Railway, 320. Western Railway, 410 and West Central Railway, 133. So the total comes out to be 5,601 isolation coaches that were made by the Indian Railways. The government further says that as per the guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, these special train coaches are to be used by the state governments only after they have exhausted their own medical facilities. And as on date, 813 coaches have been provided by Indian Railways as requisitioned by the state governments: Delhi 503, Uttar Pradesh 270 and Bihar 40. For conversion of these coaches into COVID care coaches, minor modifications like removal of middle berth and conversion of one toilet into shower room was carried out with provision of medical facilities and other items. The average cost of carrying out modifications and provision of medical facilities, including oxygen cylinders and other items, is approximately 60,000 rupees per coach. Average expenditure of approximately 7,000 rupees has been incurred per patient in the COVID care coaches. So those were the details about the isolation coaches that were prepared by Indian Railways to combat COVID pandemic. Let's move on to the next question, and this one has been asked by member V. Vijay Reddy, and this question pertains to the Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairy. And the member has sought details about Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana and the kind of employment opportunities that this scheme is likely to create.
The reply to this query was given by Minister of State for Fishing and Animal Husbandry, Pratap Sarangi. In the reply, the minister says, harnessing of fisheries potential in a sustainable, responsible, inclusive and equitable manner, enhancing of fish production and productivity through expansion, intensification, diversification and productive utilization of land and water, modernizing and strengthening of value chain, post-harvest management and quality improvement, doubling fishers and fisher farming incomes and generation of employment, enhancing contribution to agriculture, GVA and exports, social, physical and economic security for fisher and fish farmers, robust fisheries management and regulatory framework. The aims and objective of Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana are also listed in the question. The Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana envisages creating gainful employment opportunity to about 5.5 million in fisheries and allied activities by the year 2024-25 through promotion of inland fisheries and aquaculture, development of marine fisheries including mariculture, seaweed cultivation, ornamental fisheries, cold water fisheries, development and management of post-harvest and cold chain infrastructure, extension services and fish marketing. Now this scheme, that is Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, also envisages to address critical gaps in fish production, productivity, quality technology, fishing harbours and landing centres, cold chain and other post-harvest infrastructure and management, processing and value addition, modernization and strengthening of value chain, traceability, eco-labelling, improved standard of hygiene and sanitation for food safety for higher price, realization towards achieving a goal of reaching 1 lakh crore export by the year 2024-25. Well, moving on to next question that was asked by member Pratap Singh Bajwa. Here the question pertains to the space application of India. Now, member has asked query from Department of Space, Prime Minister's Office, and his query is regarding the Earth observation centers and also the number of satellites which are not operational in the orbit anymore.
So this response has been given by Dr. Jitendra Singh, who is MOS in Prime Minister's Office, and he says that 32 Earth observation sensors are in orbit right now with advanced capabilities providing space-related information. 5 Earth observation satellites and 5 communication payloads released since January 2018. Information support provided for all major disaster events like floods, cyclones and forest fires since January 2020. About 2,51,000 value-added data products disseminated to users since April 2020. Value-added products comprise geophysical and remote sensing data products derived using data from MET, oceanographic and land remote sensing satellites. Total satellites launched by Indian Space Research Organisation that are no longer operational or life-ended and currently in orbit are 47. 26 satellites in LEO or low Earth orbit and 21 in geosynchronous equatorial orbit. And let's move on to the last question of this edition of the Question Hour show asked by member Jyotirada Scindia, and this question is to the Ministry of Food Processing Industries. And the minister has inquired about the capacity of food processing industries in India, particularly in the state of Madhya Pradesh, and the steps taken by the government to enhance this capacity.
Well, the reply to this query was given by Minister of State for Food Processing Industry, Rameshwar Teli, and the minister says that there are several schemes on initiatives started by this government so as to make the food processing industry even more robust. In the reply given by the ministry, as per latest annual survey of industries 2017-18 estimates a total of 34,562 food processing factories and units are operational across country in food and beverage sector, with 883 food processing factories or units operational in the state of Madhya Pradesh. In order to increase the level of food processing in the country, Ministry of Food Processing Industry has been implementing Central Sector Umbrella Scheme, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana, with component schemes. Now, these component schemes include mega food parks, integrated cold chain and value addition infrastructure, infrastructure for agro-processing clusters, creation of backward and forward linkages, creation expansion of food processing and preservation capacities, food safety and quality assurance and infrastructure, human resource institution, operation greens. Now, Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampada Yojana is a comprehensive package which will result in creation of modern infrastructure with efficient supply chain management from farm gate to retail outlet. It will help increase the processing level and enhance the export of processed foods, and the scheme envisages to leverage investment of rupees 31,400 crore, handling of 334 lakhs million tons agro produce valuing 1,04,125 crore, and that will benefit 20 lakh farmers and generate 5,30,500 direct indirect employment in the country on the completion of sanctioned projects. The Ministry of Food Processing Industry has also launched a newly centrally sponsored scheme, PM Formalization of Micro Food Processing Enterprise Scheme, for providing financial, technical and business support for upgradation of existing micro food processing enterprises. It is to be implemented for the period of 5 years from year 2020-21 to 2024-25 with an outlay of 10,000 crore. 2 lakh micro food processing units are to be directly assisted with credit linked subsidy under the scheme. A total of 10,500 units is targeted to be supported in Madhya Pradesh under this scheme.
So Rajat, these were the important questions and answers for our viewers in this edition of the Question Hour show.
Well, thanks for watching Question Hour Rajya Sabha TV. You can also watch all our programs on the online platform of YouTube, and also can track our programming and various updates on the Twitter handle of Rajya Sabha TV. Thanks for watching Question Hour.
Take care.